All right. Hey, students. I'm going to talk a little bit about stencils and show you how to apply a paper stencil or a paper resist to your clay. All right. So what you want to do is whatever your design is that you want to do from your sketchbook, make a copy of it on the copy machine in the office. If this does not make sense to you, just take your sketchbook up to the office and ask Ms. Banks if she can show you how to make a copy. It's super easy once you know what you're doing. All right, then I'm actually going to show you on this copy just because it goes a little bit quicker. So for the sake of time, for the demo, I'm going to cut out a more simple shape. What I did here was I have a plastic triangle stencil that I thought would be fun to use for this. So I literally made a photocopy of the stencil. And then this way I have lots of great shapes that I can cut out. It didn't make sense for me to draw a bunch of sharp triangles when this already exists. That's something you guys can do as well. All right, so before I start cutting, I'm gonna make sure I have my X-Acto knife and I have a cutting mat. Always have a cutting mat under the paper when you're gonna use an X-Acto knife. Do not scratch up the tables. If you cut the tables, it is like instant demerits, okay? You can use a ruler as your guide if you're doing straight lines. I'm just gonna wing it on here, but I can show you how to use a ruler to make your lines even sharper. All right, so I'm gonna cut along the edge of my design. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing to cut this triangle. So when you create a stencil, you're actually creating two pieces. And you can use either piece of paper. All right, so you have where you cut the shape from. This is actually what's called a stencil, is when there's an open space that you can use to draw or paint in to give you that shape. The piece that you cut out, however, is actually called a frisket, rhymes with Trisket. But if you want to just call them all paper resist, or if you even refer to this as a stencil, it's not gonna be wrong, but I think it's a fun word. So fun fact to know that that is a frisket. You can use this as well. So one is going to give you, block off the paper, the clay, so that this area stays white. The other one is going to block off the other. All right, so let's say maybe I want to do two in a row. Again, always having your cutting mat. You're going to get tired of me saying that probably. I just want to make sure that these tabletops in our art room stay beautiful and perfect for as long as possible. All right. So I've got two friskets and I've got a stencil that has two triangles. If I want, I can do a third because I do want, so I'm going to do this. Sorry, guys. Stretch it out. So what I want to have is my dish ready to go. You can apply a stencil to any leather hard clay. So we're working on our ring dishes or jewelry dishes, whatever we want to call them. I actually have some of these at home that I use as spoon rests. I'm going to do a little smoothing real quick because I don't want this to look or feel sharp after it's fired. I just use my fingers for a lot of things, fingers and fingernails. They're great tools. All right. So now what I want to do is figure out where I want these. So maybe I want this design here, and that means maybe I need to cut some of these, some of this out of the way. So I just need a little bit of a border. That's even more than I need. All right, so I've got my triangles here. I'm good to go. What I'm going to do is take my little spritzer bottle. So the reason I want my clay leather hard is I want it to be firm. I don't want it to be too dry. If it gets to the bone dry stage where it looks like gray and feels kind of powdery on the outside, then you're risking, by adding water back in, you're risking some cracking. But if it's too wet already, then we're going to be making our clay really sloppy. All right. Sorry, that's a little hard to see because the gray copy. Get a little more light in here, maybe. Thanks for bearing with me. All right, I'm going to shake up my slip really well. So I've got a green one again. I can see all that color in the bottom, a little bit of solid clay, and I want to really get that integrated. Right. So you can see that's pretty much all uniform consistency now. Oh, if I want, I can add a frisket so that I end up with all right. If you can get one of these that is clean and dry, I think these are great for kind of patting that stencil down to make really good contact with the clay. You can let this dry a little bit or just kind of smooth it. I'm not going to let it hang out too long. I'm going to get my brush. All right. So I have everything exactly where I want it. If I don't want to paint around the outside edges, I can just paint that area where the stencil is. But for my design, I'm going to go ahead and do the whole thing. So I've got sort of a triangle going in many directions. I think that might be a neat geometric design. We'll see how it turns out. We plan, but we can also experiment. All right, so now I'm going to let this dry a little bit because then I'm going to go ahead and pull up the paper. I don't need that anymore because I'm done adding the slip. The paper has done its job. So let's see, I'm going to pause this for a second and then come back and finish recording when it's dry. All right, so I've let this dry for just about 2 minutes and it is ready to go. So I need to go ahead and pull up the paper and kind of get your X-Acto knife under that paper a little bit. And so you can see I have this really crisp triangle. So this area that looks gray right now is going to turn out white after this is bisque fired. I need to get this bigger stencil up. All right, and again, really crisp on the triangles. I got a little leak under that paper. That's fine. That is something that I can easily remove with a tool or a fingernail. All right, and so I've got my geometric design. And if I want to now, I can add another stencil and use another color over the top. You can layer it up. There's a lot of cool things you can do. So I hope you have fun experimenting with paper stencils.